press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
So I must explain the significance of Kelvin scale, how Kelvin scale is introduced. Okay, see, to take up Kelvin scale, we must know a little background of ideal gases. Well, in chemistry you have already come across gas laws. Gas laws. You have already come across Boyle's law, Charles' law, Gay-Lussac law, Boyle's law, Charles' law, Gay-Lussac law, etc. Graham's law of diffusion, right? Dalton's law of partial pressure. There are so many gas laws are there. If you take a Boyle's law, so you know that the volume of given mass of gas is inversely proportional to pressure at constant temperature. The volume of given mass of gas inversely proportional to pressure at constant temperature. Or you can write PV is equal to a constant at constant temperature. Or when you take Charles' law, volume of given mass of gas is directly proportional to absolute temperature. Volume of given mass of gas is directly proportional to absolute temperature at constant pressure. Here is pressure is kept constant. Or we can write V by T equals a constant. Okay. If you take Gay-Lussac law, pressure of given mass of gas is directly proportional to absolute temperature at constant volume. Here volume is kept constant, here pressure kept constant, here temperature kept constant. Or we can write P by T equals a constant. So when you take Boyle's law and Charles' law, when you combine these two, we can write another equation PV by T equals a constant. See, this is called combined gas equation. Okay, you are combining Boyle's law and Charles' law and you are expressing like this, PV by T is equal to a constant. And this constant for 1 mole of gas is taken to be R, and this constant is indicated by R, and we call it as universal gas constant. See, therefore, equation takes the form PV is equal to R into T. And this equation is called ideal gas equation. Ideal gas equation. What is an ideal gas? The gas which obeys Boyle's law and Charles' law at all conditions of temperature and pressure is called an ideal gas. You may ask the question, sir, is there anything like ideal gas? The answer is no. See, there is no ideal gas, but gases do show ideal behavior only under certain set of conditions. You will see the ideal behavior of gases only under certain conditions of temperature and pressure, but in all, not in all cases. Okay. See, therefore, whatever the gas you have come across, it may be a hydrogen gas or oxygen gas or whatever may be the gas, helium or whatever it may be. See, those gases are real gases. Those gases shows ideal behavior only under certain set of conditions. And this is the equation which represents the ideal gas. For 1 mole of an ideal gas, we have this equation. If there are n moles, then equation takes the form PV is equal to n into RT, where n is the number of moles. Have you got it? See, this is about ideal gas. So you will understand more details of ideal gas. So when you come to the 3rd chapter, kinetic theory, or even in chemistry also, you will get the lot of information related to behavior of gases and also about the kinetic theory of gases. Okay. Now let us take up the importance of Kelvin scale. See, when you come to Charles' law, volume directly proportional to temperature, or Gay-Lussac law, pressure directly proportional to temperature. If you plot the graph of volume of given mass of gas versus temperature, see here temperature is in degree Celsius, okay, temperature is expressed in degree Celsius, I just take it as temperature. You will get a line like this, straight line like this. When you extend this, when you extrapolate the graph, it will touch the temperature axis at a particular value, and this is found to be minus 273.15 degrees Celsius, right? So therefore, at this particular temperature, volume becomes 0, right? At this particular temperature, graphically, you will find that volume of given mass of gas becomes equal to 0. Then scientists tried with other gases, another gas. In this case also, when they extend it, when they extrapolate it, see, this is for gas A and this is for gas B. And when some other gas is taken, gas C, they take 1 mole of gases and they conducted series of experiments. They obtained the graph, they plotted volume and temperature on the graph, and when they extrapolate the curve, all these curves met at a single point which is correspond to minus 273.15 degrees Celsius. Okay. See, that is the temperature at which volume of the given mass of gas becomes theoretically equal to 0. And similarly, if you plot the graph of pressure versus temperature, it is found that same result was obtained at that particular temperature. Pressure also found to be 0 at that particular temperature. At this particular temperature, minus 273.15 degrees Celsius, the pressure of given mass of gas was also found to be equal to 0. Lord Kelvin made the observation of these two, and he came to conclusion that minus 273.15 degrees Celsius must be the lowest attainable temperature, and he called the temperature as absolute 0. What is absolute 0? Absolute 0 is that particular temperature at which volume or pressure of given mass of gas becomes theoretically equal to 0. Here volume 0, here pressure becomes equal to 0 at that particular temperature. See, that temperature is called as absolute 0, and based on this, Kelvin made a theoretical scale of temperature, and that scale of temperature is called as absolute scale of temperature, or it is generally called Kelvin scale of temperature. According to Kelvin scale, what is 0 Kelvin? 0 Kelvin is minus 273.15 degrees Celsius. The interesting thing is that in Kelvin scale, the lowest fixed point is, the lowest possible temperature is minus 273.15 degrees Celsius. That is the lowest point. And it can have any highest value, but lowest possible value is only this much. 0 Kelvin is the lowest one. Have you got it? See, that is the importance of Kelvin scale of temperature or absolute scale of temperature. I hope you have understood the importance or significance of Kelvin scale, right? So therefore, in all our measurements, temperature in SI is expressed in terms of Kelvin only. Kelvin scale has got lot of advantages. Suppose if there is any faulty calibration, if the thermometer is not being properly calibrated, if there is a wrong readings which are being etching on the thermometer itself, it is not being properly marked, then whatever reading you will observe in the thermometer will not be the exact one. See, generally we call it as poor calibration. If the calibration is not correct, if the markings are not correct, then your thermometer will record wrong reading. If that is the case, if a thermometer due to poor calibration records a different reading, then how can you calculate the actual temperature by the previous technique, by using the previous formula? Okay, let us consider one such problem. Example 3. A faulty thermometer, a faulty calibrated thermometer has lower fixed point 2 degrees Celsius and upper fixed point 98 degrees Celsius. If now it records a temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, then find its actual value. So we have a thermometer which is not good in construction, the instrument has certain defect, calibration is not good. See, therefore, instead of 0 degree Celsius, it is recorded 2 degree Celsius at ice point, melting point of ice 2 degree and boiling point as 98 degree. See, in such a thermometer, if that thermometer shows a reading of 30 degrees Celsius, then what will be the actual value? Now, let us take the relation Tc minus 0, 100 minus 0. This is your properly calibrated thermometer. This is equal to faulty calibrated thermometer, Tc dash minus, this is 2 degree, it is showing 98 degree, showing minus 2. Okay. Now you just simplify this, Tc by 100 is equal to Tc dash how much? It is recorded 30 degrees Celsius, 30 minus 2 divided by 96. Tc is equal to 100 into 28 divided by 96. So when you simplify this, so you are going to get what is the actual temperature. So in this way you can calculate actual temperature. There used to be a problem related to faulty calibrated thermometer also. Okay. And even based on length of mercury in a mercury thermometer, the problems could be given. They will tell you what is the length of mercury in the thermometer at 0 degree Celsius and 100 degree Celsius, and based on that they ask you to calculate the temperature. Okay. See, that calculation can be made. Well, so knowing of all this, now we are in a position to understand what are the important effects of heat. Effects of heat. Effects of heat. So when heat is given to a substance, It may be a solid, liquid or a gas. So, on absorption of heat energy, there will be certain changes. Certain changes going to happen. So, that you are going to understand now. So, mainly we have identified that there is an expansion. We call it as thermal expansion. The change in the dimension of the body or the substance with increase in temperature is called thermal expansion. The change in the dimension. Dimension means length, breadth or length, area, volume, whatever it may be. Length, breadth, thickness. The dimension. When there is a change in the dimension of the body or the substance with increase in temperature, we generally call it as thermal expansion. And secondly, so when you go on supplying heat to the substance or system, you will find that there will be change in the state. If you are supplying heat to a cube of ice, it absorbs heat and it starts melting. There will be change of state from ice to water. When you go on heating, after complete melting is over, at certain stage water started boiling. There will be change of state from water to vapor, water to steam. See, therefore, the second important thing is change of state. These are the two major aspects. And even, say, when you go to higher classes, you are going to understand due to heat, we can generate electricity. That is what we call it as thermoelectric effect. Electric effect is also there. And if you go to chemistry, when you have to go on heating the system, there will be change in the chemical composition of the system. See, that's also there. Okay. See, we shall not go to those details, but from the point of view of your syllabus, you shall confine only towards thermal expansion as well as change of states. These are the two main areas we need to cover. Okay. First, let us take up thermal expansion in detail, right? So, when you take thermal expansion, in case of solids, the solid may be in the form of a rod. Okay, we have a rod. You are supplying constant heat to this rod. How you can supply constant heat to the rod? Very simple thing is, keep the rod in a steam chamber. You take a steam chamber, steam, you just take a pipe, insert the rod inside the pipe, supply steam to the pipe. We call it as a steam chamber like this. So, we have a system like this. There is a pipe and inside this you are keeping the rod and there is a steam inlet and there is a steam outlet. Steam in, steam out. Right? As a result, the entire length of rod gets equal quantity of heat and which leads to expansion. Okay. See, if there is a increase in the length of the rod takes place, in such a case, right, small increase in the length, this much increase, I take it as delta L. This is L, actual length is L, delta L is the increase in length. Then we characterize this as linear expansion. Linear expansion. If the expansion is unidimensional, if the expansion takes place along its length, it is called as linear expansion. And this linear expansion is being characterized by a constant called coefficient of linear expansion, coefficient of linear expansion. Or linear expansion coefficient. How we can define this? Coefficient of linear expansion, which is indicated by alpha. We indicate this by alpha. How we can define this? Alpha may be defined as the ratio of increase in length to original length of the rod per unit rise in temperature. Per unit rise in temperature is called as linear expansion coefficient. The ratio of increase in length of the rod to its original length per unit degree rise in temperature is called as linear expansion coefficient. And this is expressed in terms of per Kelvin. Per Kelvin. Or you can also define this as fractional increase in length. Delta L by L indicates what? Fractional increase. Fractional increase in the length of the rod per unit degree rise in temperature is called as linear expansion coefficient. Okay. See, every rod or every material is being characterized by a particular value of linear expansion coefficient. Okay. For example, if you take aluminum, it will be around 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 5 per Kelvin. Very small increase, right? See, it's a different, it depends on the nature of the rod you have chosen. See, it is different for different types of the materials. For example, if you take aluminum, for aluminum alpha, it comes out to be 2.5 into 10 raised to minus 5 per Kelvin. If you take brass, for brass it is about 1.8 into 10 raised to minus 5 per Kelvin. If you take iron, alpha of iron is equal to 1.2 into 10 raised to minus 5 per Kelvin. Okay. See, like this, it depends on the nature of material you have chosen, different for different materials. This is called linear expansion coefficient. Now let us move on to areal expansion. This is first one. Let's move on to areal or superficial expansion. Superficial expansion. Areal or superficial expansion. So when heat is supplied to a metal plate, see, plate is like this, have a plate, metal plate. When heat is supplied to this metal plate, there is a small change in its area. If this is the plate, there is a small change in its area. If I take this as delta A, this is A, original area is A, increase in area is delta. Delta refers to very small increase in area. So in such a case, we will find that delta A by A per unit degree rise in temperature is always a constant, and this constant is indicated by beta, and we call it as coefficient of superficial expansion. Coefficient of superficial expansion, and this is also expressed in terms of per Kelvin. See, it may be defined as the ratio of increase in area of the given metal plate to its original area per unit degree rise in temperature, or you can even define like this: the fractional increase in the area of the body per unit rise in temperature is called coefficient of superficial expansion. And this is also expressed in terms of per Kelvin. Here, interesting thing is, suppose, so you have a metal plate and there is a hole here in the metal plate. Okay, this is a most common question, frequent question in the entrance. You have supplied heat to this metal plate. When you supply heat to the metal plate, they will ask you to find out what will be the radius of the hole after certain interval of time. When the plate expands, what will be the radius? Remember, hole is the part of this plate, right? See, therefore, if the plate expands, hole also expands. Therefore, diameter of the hole also increases, or radius of the hole also increases, or area of the circular patch on the metal plate also increases. A circular slot is there, its area increases with increase in temperature because it is part of the metal plate. Okay, don't think that it will contract, okay, area will decrease, never, it never happens, it will increases. Alright, suppose if there is increase in volume, if volume itself increases with supply of heat, then we call it as volume expansion, or it is also called cubical expansion. Volume expansion or cubical expansion. Say, let me take a small cube. The original volume of the cube is V. Okay, you are supplying heat to this cube, and as a result, you will find that there is a small increase in its volume. And I indicate this by delta V. See, therefore, the ratio of increase in volume of the cube to its original volume per unit degree rise in temperature is always a constant, and this constant is called coefficient of volume expansion. And it is also called coefficient of cubical expansion, and this is also expressed in terms of per Kelvin. Okay, it may be defined as the ratio of increase in volume of a given material to its original volume per unit degree rise in temperature, or fractional increase in volume of the cube per unit degree rise in temperature is called as coefficient of volume expansion. For example, if you take iron, its value is about 3.55 into 10 raised to minus 5 per Kelvin. If you take aluminium, it is about 7 into 10 raised to minus 5. Right? So, we can experimentally determine the values of alpha, beta and gamma. There are unique experimental techniques by which you can determine alpha, beta, gamma of any given material. Either you have taken in the form of a rod, or taken in the form of a plate, or taken in the form of a cube, right? Whatever it may be. And here I can tell you another interesting thing. If you have a cube and there is a cavity inside the cube, we have a solid cube, right? And there is a cavity inside the cube. there is a cavity. It may be of any irregular dimension, okay. You are supplying heat to the cube uniformly. Then what happens to the volume of the cavity? Volume of the cavity also increases. Volume of the cavity also increases. Have you got my point? In case of a plate, area of the slot, area of the hole increases. If it is in the form of a ring, area of the ring increases, right? In case of cavity inside a solid body, when heat is supplied, the volume of the cavity also increases. See, that's about how we can understand the expansion in case of solids. Suppose in some way you have prevented the body from expansion, though heat is being supplied, you are supplying heat to a metal rod, it tries to expand, but you are making certain obstruction for expansion, and as a result a stress is being developed in the material, and we call that stress as thermal stress. Have you got my point? Say suppose you have a rod, and this rod is being supplied with heat, but you have rigidly fixed both the ends. It tries to expand, but there is no allocation for expansion, okay. You have not provided any sort of allocation for expansion. Then what happens? This leads to bending of this. Why? Because stress is being developed in the rod. Stress is being developed, and we call that stress as thermal stress. With increase in temperature, when it tries to expand, if it is being prevented from expansion, then there will be a bending. Okay. See, if there is a contraction with a decrease in temperature, if you prevent it from contracting, then also there will be a stress. Therefore, we call this stress as thermal stress. See, we can write the expression for thermal stress like this. We have thermal stress. Already you know that alpha is given by, alpha is increase in length to original length per unit degree rise in temperature. I take delta T to the side, alpha into delta T is equal to delta L by L. Already in mechanical properties of solids, you have come across Young's modulus. Young's modulus. I hope they have completed chapter elasticity. Every elastic material or elastic body or every solid is being characterized by an elastic constant called Young's modulus, and this Young's modulus is defined as the ratio of stress, longitudinal stress or tensile stress to longitudinal strain. Tensile stress to longitudinal strain is called as Young's modulus. Okay. Here I can write stress, strain is equal to, if you want to know what is stress is equal to y into strain. Y into, what is strain? Change in length by original length. Strain may be defined as change in length of the rod to the original length is called longitudinal strain. This is stress. Now you know what is delta L by L, alpha into delta T. Therefore, I can write stress, this stress is thermal stress, I call this as thermal stress, which is equal to y into alpha into delta T. I am putting alpha into delta T here in this equation. I am substituting, if I take this as equation 1, if this as equation 2, I am substituting equation 1 in equation 2 in the place of delta L by L, I am putting alpha into delta T. See, this is how we can determine thermal stress. I can give you one example which is already known to you. In a railway track, between the rails, right? In a railway track, rails are being joined, okay? Between the rails, a small allocation is being provided, a small gap is being provided that you have read in your high school. Why that allocation is being made? Because during summer, the rail got heated up. The railway track gets heated up, and because of heating, it expands. If the gap is not provided, then due to thermal stress, the track may bend. If the track bends, then the train will derail. It leads to certain accident. The train wheels will be derailed. It comes out of that track, and as a result, it met with certain accident. That's why an allocation has been provided for expansion. See, that is called thermal stress. And if you take concrete roads, between successive concrete blocks, in a concrete road there are so many blocks, road is being made in a block wise. Between the blocks, a proper gap has been provided. Why? Because during summer there should be an allocation for expansion. There will be aerial expansion. Otherwise, there will be a crack in the concrete block, crack in the road. So, to avoid that, an allocation has been made. Even the bridges, in case of metal bridges, an allocation has been made for expansion during summer. Okay. See, this is important significance of thermal stress. So, if you know the value of Young's constant and alpha of the given material, if you are made use of iron for the bridges, or if you are making use of an iron in case of a railway track, steel, you put the value for iron or steel, and you know the Young's modulus, you know what is the rise in temperature and under the normal conditions or during summer, put the value, you can calculate what is the thermal stress developed. It is not a very small number, it is a very big number. See, that's why it is being seriously tackled while making constructions, right? See, that is why the understanding of mechanical properties of solids, liquids, and also thermal properties is very, very important in our day-to-day life. See, that is why you are being exposed to all these topics at this level. You are going to be engineers. So, you need to know certain basic ideas of all this, right? Okay. And now let us move on to certain applications of thermal expansion in your day-to-day life. This also you have come across in secondary schools, lower secondary. So, you might have seen that transmission power lines from electric pole to one pole to another pole, there will be electric transmission lines are there. See, there will be a sagging of lines, okay, if the electric pole is like this, if the electric pole like this, see, there will be electric lines like this, and during the summer you will be finding that there will be little sagging because it expands, there will be an expansion. The sagging of transmission lines is due to linear expansion. And suppose you have got a glass vessel, and the lid you have put there is tightly fit into the glass vessel. It is very difficult to remove it. So, you cannot make use of a hammer to remove it because it is a glass, it is brittle. So, then how it can be loosened? How you want to remove the lid? It is a stopper type lid, how it can be removed? So, you take a hot water, please take a hot water and pour hot water on the neck of the glass vessel. As a result, the glass vessel expands, you can easily remove the lid, you can easily remove the stopper. See, this is also one of the consequences of linear expansion. And in rural areas, you have seen that the cart, the conventional cart, bullock cart has iron rim. Iron rim. Actually, the radius of the rim is lesser than the radius of the cart wheel. See, it will be heated. It will be heated constantly. When it is being red hot, it expands. Because of heating, it expands. There will be an aerial expansion, and after the expansion, it will put on the cart wheel, and simultaneously they pour cold water on the rim, and as a result it contracts and hold the wheel tightly. See, this is also how we can make use of physics to put a rim to the wooden cart wheel, right? Have you got my point? See, like this, there are plenty of examples which are being related to thermal expansions, how we handle or how we tackle the situation by keeping in mind the thermal expansion, the concept of thermal expansion. Okay, see, knowing of this, let us move on to take the case of pendulum clock. See, in olden days, we used to have a pendulum clock. Pendulum clock. There will be a, if this is a clock, it will be like this. There will be a pendulum. There will be a pendulum which is swinging here and there, and which makes the movement of levers inside a small levers, geared tooth inside the clock. Okay, so we call such clock as pendulum clock. And the problem with this pendulum clock was, during summer there used to be an expansion, linear expansion, slight expansion. As length increases, period of oscillation also increases. Okay, so due to increase the period, the clock became slow. During summer, clock became slow. During winter, because of decrease in temperature, there will be contraction. When there is a decrease in the length, when the length decreases, period decreases. See, therefore, the timer becomes faster, the clock becomes faster, the clock records more time. Okay. See, that was the problem with pendulum clock in olden days. See, later on, to make a correction, they made use of an alloy called Invar. The term Invar refers to invariable Invar. It's a special type of an alloy. The interesting thing is that its expansion is extremely small. See, therefore, during summer or winter, there won't be any appreciable change in the time. Okay. But nowadays, we are not making use of this pendulum clock. See, we have electronic clocks, we have more sophisticated timers. But in olden days, that was the problem, and scientists made a correction to it by making use of pendulums, bar pendulums, which are made of Invar. And even if you take glass rod, this platinum glass rod with a platinum wire attached to it, used in the chemistry for flame test. Why platinum is being used? Reason is that the expansion of platinum as well as glass are same. If the expansion is different, then platinum wire would have detached from the glass rod during heating. Since their expansions are same, nothing is going to happen. We can conduct the experiment. Okay. See, these such small things are there. It appears to be so silly, but scientists, while designing an instrument, while making an application, they have considered all these factors for better accuracy, for better performance, for better results. Okay, so that's why you are reading, you are being exposed to physics. All right. So now let us work out one or two problems related to this, and afterwards we shall move on to expansion. Expansion in case of liquids. Okay, we shall take one or two problems related to expansion of a blacksmith. A blacksmith fixes iron rim on the wooden wheel of the cart. The diameter of the rim and iron ring, the diameter of rim and wooden wheel are 5.243 meter and 5.231 meter respectively. At 27 degrees Celsius. To what temperature should the ring be heated? So as to fit the rim on the wheel, so as to say here they have given alpha of iron is equal to 1.2 into 10 raised to minus 5 per Kelvin. Okay. See here, let us make use of equation for linear expansion. L2 is equal to L1 into 1 plus alpha into T2 minus T1. Okay. L1 is the initial length, or you can call it as initial diameter. If you take a diameter, you can write D1, no problem. Final diameter is D2. Alpha of iron, T2 minus T1. You want to calculate what is T2, to what temperature it has to be heated. You know, actually the initial iron rim is smaller in size, I mean smaller in diameter compared to the cart wheel. Okay. So therefore it has to be heated such that the rim should acquire the diameter of the wheel. Okay. So to that extent you have to heat it. Therefore you must take D2 as this one, 5.243 meter. D1 is, initial one is 5.231. If you want to fit iron rim to the cart wheel, iron rim should acquire the diameter of wheel. See, that's why I have taken this. 1 plus alpha is how much? 1.2 into 10 raised to minus 5, and T2 is not known. What is T1? 27 degrees Celsius. 27 degrees Celsius. Simply simplify this. Okay, simplify this. On simplification, you are going to get T2 is equal to 218 degrees Celsius. Okay, please check it up. So, keep this value, please simplify this. You have to multiply this and take to this side and subtract, simplify. So, you are going to get T2 comes out to be 218 degree Celsius. We shall take another problem. A hole is drilled in a copper sheet. A hole is drilled in a copper sheet. The diameter of hole is 5.24 centimeter at 27 degrees Celsius. What is the change in diameter? What is the change in diameter? What is the change in diameter when the sheet is heated to 227 degrees Celsius? Okay, 227. Here alpha of copper is given 1.7 into 10 raised to minus 5 degree 5 per Kelvin. In Kelvin they have given. Okay, see here delta L is equal to L into alpha into delta T. You can directly use this relation. What is alpha? L is how much? 4.24 centimeter, and then alpha is 1.7 into 10 raised to minus 5. What is delta T? Delta T is 227 minus 27. See, when you simplify this, you are going to get 1.44 into 10 raised to minus 2 centimeter. Okay. See, this is going to be the result. See, therefore, the increase in the diameter will be this much. You can take it as D or L, whatever it may be, no problem. Have you got it? I hope you have seen this ball and ring experiment in your high school. See, this is a ring, this is a ring. Ring is attached to a small sphere. The sphere cannot get inside the ring. This is a sphere. Sphere cannot get inside the ring easily. See, therefore, what you have to do is you just heat this ring. When you go on heating the ring, at certain particular temperature, the ring expands. So, as a result, the ball easily get inside. Okay, now it is not moving, but at certain particular temperature, when you go on heating, here heating is not possible. So, at certain particular temperature, you will find that this spherical ball get into the ring. See, that experiment will tell you that when heat is given to a ring, it expands. Even inner radius also increases, right? Inner radius also increases. See, this is about certain sample problems related to expansion. Okay. See, with this, we shall move on to expansion of liquids. In the next class.